When Tears of the Kingdom came out, I had words. You might remember some of those words if you've been here long enough, but in a nutshell, I was split down the middle. I was both overjoyed at all the new gameplay elements and extended map area to explore, but at the same time, disappointed by certain things like the repetitious Sky Islands, or most importantly, the handling of the story. And when I uploaded those videos, a lot of you disagreed with me and let me know that you disagreed with me, and you know what, I think that's great. I think it's healthy to exercise your right to be wrong, but on the other hand, there were quite a few of you who saw where I was coming from, some of which were even other creators who had come to similar conclusions all on their own. I think the best examples of this would be either Mr. Zeltic, who voiced many similar concerns in his elegant Zeltic way, or Skitty Bitty, who hit the disappointment nail on the head with absolute bangers like this.
Rose up from the ground. I went to open it, and... Are you kidding me? This can't be serious. They cannot be serious. The payoff to all of this is recycled DLC armor from Breath of the Wild?
So good and tasty?
But the conversation just got a massive update, because now we have the official, playable, canon backstory to Tears of the Kingdom in the form of the newest Hyrule Warriors game, Age of Imprisonment. And by the way, if you're interested in a breakdown of the story from Age of Imprisonment but either can't or won't be able to play it yourself, #relatable, I made a video just a few days ago covering exactly that, and there's a link to it in the description below. I will say though that the events of Age of Imprisonment brought a whole lot to the table in regards to what I felt was missing from Tears of the Kingdom. Even more in fact than I was expecting. But was it enough to completely fix everything that lots of players felt was missing from the game? Let's talk about it, starting from the least impactful concepts and working our way to the most. Oh, and spoiler alert by the way, duh. Remember the 4 new super powerful Scourge monsters that kind of replaced the old Blight Ganons from Breath of the Wild as the bosses of the 4 dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom? Well, now we know not only where they most likely came from, but also what their original versions looked like. And the fact that they at one point were sentient beings that could even speak. When Ganondorf initially stole Sonia's secret stone and made it his own, not only did he spawn his monsters across Hyrule, something we already saw in Tears of the Kingdom, but he also created 4 powerful monsters known as the Archfiends, which we did not see in Tears of the Kingdom and who are more than likely the original forms of today's Scourges. Colgera was once Grimgera, the self-proclaimed most powerful of the Archfiends. Marbled Goma was once Grim Goma, who barely shows up in the game. Muktarok was once Grim Torok, the most emo of them all, and Queen Gibdo was once Grim Gibdo, the actual most powerful of the Archfiends. They were each defeated by the heroes of Hyrule in the past, resurrected, then defeated again, and finally resurrected once more in the present era, although their slight physical changes and lack of ability to speak anymore are curious indeed. We are also given more insight into the various Zonai shrines spread across Hyrule. These shrines were created to seal away various evil spirits known as shades, which would pop up all over Hyrule in the past. Visually, these shades bear some close resemblances to Gloom, which of course was previously only accredited to Ganondorf's power after absorbing the Secret Stone and becoming the Demon King. But now we can see firsthand that Ganondorf had dark powers even before he stole the Secret Stone, as he was able to not only create as many puppet Zeldas as he wanted, but one of them even channels its power into a forbidden construct which ends up looking visually very similar to Gloom. This means we have a non-zero chance that the shades were Ganondorf's creations all along, finally giving us a concrete answer to why Sonia and Rauru built those shrines in the first place. It was Ganondorf all along. Another new little detail we were given is of Zelda, specifically why she did not feel the need to warn anyone in the past about the possible grave, era-defining danger that Ganondorf could bring about, should he be tied in any way to Calamity Ganon, something we know was already on her mind even in Tears of the Kingdom's cutscenes. It turns out that Zelda actually was trying to speak to Sonia about the events of Calamity Ganon in the future, but was immediately hushed before she could say a word, with Sonia claiming that the future must remain unknown in order for it to be less dangerous. Whether or not this knowledge would have prevented Ganondorf's success and her own death, though, we may never know. Now let's talk about some more impactful new details. First and foremost, we finally got much more very needed backstory on each of the sages. Agriston, the Goron chief, Kia, the Zora queen, Ardi, the Gerudo chieftain, Rafika, the Rito leader, and even Minoru, the last of the Zonai herself. While each of these sages received more backstory, the most interesting in my opinion are Kia and Ardi, with the former being a very hands-on Zora queen who unexpectedly unexpectedly ascended to the Zora throne when her father was killed by the forbidden construct that Ganondorf created, and the latter rebelling against Ganondorf after he betrayed his own people and later being made chieftain of the remaining Gerudo. We're also finally told what the story is behind their strange green masks that they wear in Tears of the Kingdom. These are known as the Envoy masks, and, like their name implies, they are given to leaders of other races or tribes as a sign of friendship and allegiance between that tribe and the Kingdom of Hyrule. And what's even more interesting is their design. They each represent a guardian animal of Hyrule, known as a sacred beast, although we don't get to see any of them in-game. But if that name Sacred Beast sounds familiar, that's because each of them were also very likely the inspirations behind the much more familiar and Sheikah-made divine beasts in Breath of the Wild. We also have more details behind Sonia's assassination that make the entire scenario much more believable. Previously in Tears of the Kingdom, it just appeared to be one random evening that Puppet Zelda lured Sonia to a balcony where Ganondorf was waiting to strike from behind, with Rauru nowhere to be found, allegedly elsewhere in the castle. But in Age of Imprisonment, we are shown that Ganondorf meticulously planned the entire assassination with actually a decent amount of cunning. In the first place, he moved into the castle 6 months prior to the event, causing everyone to become somewhat familiar with his presence and allowing him to properly scope out the castle itself. He also began causing shades to appear in greater quantities across Hyrule, then played on Rauru's distrust of himself by volunteering to go take care of the shade problem personally, knowing Rauru would follow him, but ended up juking the King of Hyrule and secretly staying behind in the castle while Rauru set out to follow a Ganondorf that had never really left, effectively playing Rauru like a fiddle. We're even shown specifically where Ganondorf was standing while waiting for Sonia and Zelda's backs to be turned so that he could deliver the killing strike against the Queen. And to be honest, all of this made the character of Tears of the Kingdom's Ganondorf much more fearsome and respectable in a villainous kind of way. Also, this is neither here nor there, but they took out his iconic laugh in Age of Imprisonment, which I thought was even funnier than the laugh itself. Before I cover the most important new detail from Age of Imprisonment, though, let's talk about an honorable mention, if you will, since it's not exactly a question we had from Tears of the Kingdom, but rather just an added piece of lore that kind of makes us rethink lots of what we know from the rest of the franchise. This added detail is actually about Koroks, and a specific ability that they have that we never knew they had. According to Age of Imprisonment, Kalamo the Korok hero is wandering about Hyrule, looking for a nice piece of land where he can sprout his roots and grow into his own great tree, with a great forest to surround. And he is actually able to do just that at the end of the game. We're shown Kalamo sticking a Gerudo spear into the ground to help prop him up while he grows strong enough to withstand the winds on his own. And after the credits roll past, we see that he has indeed grown into a fine great tree. Now, as an added fun fact, this great tree pictured at the end here is none other than the ancient tree stump from both Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. If we listen to Zelda's unvoiced note at the top of the tree stump in Tears of the Kingdom, she reveals that there was an ancient spear found in the tree's roots, which is a detail much too specific to be anything else. Although why Kalamo ended up being cut down, we may never know for sure, but I did take a stab at this theory a little while ago with a video that I'll also link in the description should you be interested in it. But this ability of Koroks to become great trees with surrounding forests is kind of a big deal. I mean, how many times has the Lost Woods moved around in the franchise? And how many different great trees have there been? It's a little overwhelming to think about what might happen if each and every one of the Koroks went off and became their own great forests, but then again, what if they decided to all become trees all around each other? Maybe we would be given a grand forest of great trees, some of which would be hollowed out with other great trees inside, and wouldn't you know it, we've seen exactly that before, in the same game where the Kokiri are evidenced everywhere, but mysteriously nowhere to be found. But that aside, the final detail that I think gives us the biggest understanding to one of, if not the most mysterious ancient race across the entire Zelda franchise, that being the Zonai, would be the existence of the ancient constructs, which I will refer to as the vessels. The existence of these powerful vessels is a huge deal for two reasons. One, they are more or less confirmed by multiple sources in the game to be the reason behind the Zonai's extinction. This is something that fans have been speculating over not just since the release of Tears of the Kingdom, but all the way back to Breath of the Wild when we thought the only Zonai were the ancient barbarian tribe. Even getting a vague direction on what happened to them at the end is more than enough to get those theory juices flowing, and trust me, they are flowing. You should probably subscribe. In the second place though, the vessels answer the question of why a hero was strangely not present for the fight against Ganondorf, an actual incarnation of Demise, in the imprisoning war of Tears of the Kingdom's past. Across the entire franchise, whenever pure evil is present, a hero and a priestess of the light will always rise to meet it, unless there's a specific reason otherwise, like the removal of the spirit of the hero in the adult timeline. There is no evidence of a Link or a hero at all in Tears of the Kingdom's memories, and until now, we had no explanation as to why. But in Age of Imprisonment, we're shown firsthand that one of these vessel constructs was empowered by a shard of the Master's Sword. It then took on a form that can only be described as, honestly, a robot Link, affectionately known as Clink, with one dedicated purpose: the obliteration of evil and the protection of Hyrule and her people. Now, say what you will about whether this Vessel of Light can be properly called a hero in and of itself, since it's, you know, a robot, but what nobody can deny is that it fulfilled the role of a hero in the imprisoning war. It even technically wielded the Master's Sword, and ultimately gave its life to destroy its dark shadow part, the Forbidden Construct. And with the ending of the game perfectly explaining why we had never heard of the vessel constructs before, personally I'm pretty happy with this explanation. Now, there are still some things that have yet to be explained, such as where the Sky Islands really came from, or who and how many children Rauru and Sonia must have had before their deaths in order for their lineage to eventually produce Princess Zelda, or where the Zonai even came from in the first place, but all I can say is stay tuned. Here at Bandit Games, we're cooking up a massive explanation that I think will finally wrap up everything, and I do mean everything. That being said though, thank you so much for watching. Did you have a favorite new detail from Age of Imprisonment? Let me know all about it in the comments below, and also let me know if there's anything else you'd like for me to take a look at explaining in a future video, Zelda or non. Huge thanks as always to my bandit crew who make my day every day and are the reason I do what I do here. Follow me on my socials and I'll see you next time. This is Bandit, signing out. Peace!